So today I'm going to show you how to model a hand. Modeling a hand is pretty simple once you get the basic idea of it. And as we go through this process, it'll become pretty straightforward in how things are created and why we're doing what we're doing. So before we really get into Maya, what I'm going to show you real quick is this right here. I have these 3 reference photos. And these I just found online. So all they are is just different angles of the same hand. That way we have everything prepped together. I already put them in a folder over here. I titled it just so I have everything set up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Set Project. I'm going to go to my desktop, go to my hand folder. I'm going to hit Set and then Create Default Workspace. That way everything is set to that area and it's easier to find all the photos and anything else I need for the project. So let's start off with our reference photos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my 3 different views this time, and I'm going to start creating my reference photos. So I'll start on my front view. So I'll just go View, Image Plane, Import Image, grab my front view photo. There it is. Then I'll do my side view. And then my top view. Alright, pretty good. Let me just close this so it doesn't pop up. So, if you've seen any of the other tutorial videos, normally I use 2 reference photos, but this time we're going to use 3 just to get a better understanding of the top angle up here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just make sure everything lines up nicely. So I'm just going to take a look at my reference photos and see how well they're lining up. They all look pretty good. Let me move my top view a little bit, just so it's a little more centered. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this location of all these photos. So my front view, I'm going to go to Translate Z up here, type in -10. Do the same in my side view, except -10 in the X translate. And now that we have a top view, I'm going to actually use Translate Y, and I'm going to type in -10 for that, so it brings it to the bottom. This way, all our photos are kind of out of our way, and it's easier to work with, and we don't have to worry about them. I'm going to select all 3 of these photos, just like that, and I'm going to create a new layer. So I'm going to click on this icon right here to create a new layer. I'm just going to click on the visibility, make sure I have everything all set up nicely, which works out perfect. And then I'm going to click on this box right here twice, so that it says R for reference. This way, if I click on it, I can't really select anything. So that's going to save me a lot of trouble later on. After that, we can pretty much starting to get started on our model. So before we get really into it, what I'm going to show is, if we look at the front of our hand, we have a lot of natural curves, and that's something you work with a lot when you work with organic modeling. So you see like the curvature of the thumb into the palm. You have this curve right here, so it's not just straight across and boxy, it's rounded. We have a little bit curves here and the natural finger curves. But we'll get into that later when we get to the fingers. So we're going to actually just start with a simple cube. I'm actually going to turn X-ray on just so that I could actually see my reference photo and the cube at the same time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just scale it roughly the size of my hand's palm. So right around there should be good. We could always modify this later on. We're going to be modifying things a lot. So now I've got my front view. Let's turn X-ray on in the side view. Let's thin this out a bit. Bring this over here and here. I'm actually going to turn my reference photo off, and now I'm going to adjust my top view a little bit more, just so it lines up a little bit better. There we go. And all I did was pretty much get a rough shaping of the palm. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to start working with building out the thumb and the upper and lower portions of the palm of the hand. So let me scale it down just a little bit. And let's start getting our thumb ready. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to select this edge right here, and I'm going to drag it this way. This is going to give us a bit of an angled piece right here, and that's going to be our main point of where our thumb is going to be created from. So don't worry too much about that now. We'll get more into it later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I'm going to just start adjusting some of these vertices. Like I said, we're going to be adjusting them quite a bit as we go forward. It's just going to make things easier now than it would be later on, because later on we're going to have a lot more geometry, and if we adjust things pretty fast and pretty frequently in the beginning, we have a lot less to worry about later on. So now that I've got this general piece done, we can start kind of creating that upper portion of the palm and the lower portion of the palm. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is so that when we start working on the thumb itself, the extrusions are a lot easier to kind of mess with. So I selected the top face of my palm. I'm going to hit extrude. I'm just going to raise it up a little bit just like that. That looks pretty good. Excuse me. And I'm going to do the same with the bottom portion. So I'm just going to hit G to recreate that, and I'm lowering it just to the bottom of my palm. And that looks pretty good there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start prepping the extrusions for my thumb. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this face, and this is going to be the piece that becomes my thumb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an extrusion, and I'm going to kind of just pull it out a bit for now, and then we're going to start messing around with it to kind of really shape it into our thumb. So personally, what I like to do is I like to do it in the side view, and what I'll do is I'll kind of rotate it, and I'm rotating it so that it is kind of flat. Doesn't have to be perfect, but this way you kind of see how it's flat there. And I'm going to be using a bunch of the move tool, rotate, and scale all at once to really just shape it into that fleshy piece of my thumb's connection. So here you kind of just see the basis of it kind of starting to form. I'm going to bring it over this way a bit so it's actually fitting. You can actually see how it's nicely coming together with the actual thumb portion itself. So what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that everything is fitting nicely, and that way when I work on it, it should be pretty good. I'm going to do another extrusion, so I'm going to hit Command E or Control E if you're on a Windows. I'm just going to bring it to the top of my thumb right there and move it over a bit this way, and I'm going to scale it using the center scale inwards a bit. This way we're just going to have a little bit more to work with, and we're going to be adding a lot more geometry to it later on. It's just going to make things easier overall as we shape it out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just shape this out a little bit better in my palm. So what I'm going to just end up doing for that is I'm just going to kind of bring this forward a little bit. You don't have to do this just yet, but I just kind of want to do it for now, make things a little easier to kind of see. So just bring that out a little bit that way. That's looking pretty good for now. I might have taken these too far out. Let's bring them back a little bit. That looks better. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a lot more geometry to this. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use what's called the smoothing tool. So while it's selected in object mode, so I just went to object mode, I'm going to go to mesh, and then I'm going to go to smooth. And what that does is it pretty much doubles how much geometry I have. And basically taking every face I have, splitting it up. And as you can see, it's shaping out my thumb a lot better now. Now here's a section where we're going to be modifying a lot of different vertices on it. And the reason why is just because it's going to match up with our hand and everything's going to go pretty nicely together. So in doing so, I'll take a look at it from the top view and I can see that some of my geometry is just kind of out of place. So I'm just going to take them and kind of move them better into place now. So you can kind of go about this area as you want, like in your own way. I'm just going to be moving them around to the best of my ability. And we could always adjust these things later on. So like this part kind of goes inward a little bit more. This part I'm going to bring over this way more. All I'm doing is just kind of rounding out the palm a little bit better. So that looks pretty good for the most part. Let's just take a look at it in the front view. And here's where we kind of get that curve into play. So with that, we kind of move these pieces around a little bit just to really fit our palm a little bit better. And now is where we start getting a lot more of the detail of our hand. So this I'll kind of move in that way. This will kind of come in there. That looks pretty good. For our thumb now, we can start adjusting that. So you do have to be a little bit careful with the thumb because you do want to make sure everything is kind of fitting nicely and just kind of shaping it to the best of your ability. If it's off by a little bit, that's okay. But we're just kind of going in, shaping out that palm and doing whatever we need to do with it. So that looks good there. You could probably take this guy and this guy, bring them down a bit just to kind of round this part out more. What I'm going to actually end up doing is I'm going to probably end up deleting the faces right here just so that we have a lot of room and we don't have to really worry about how it's going to be set up. So I'm actually going to do that now. So what I'll do is I'm just going to select those bottom faces. I'm just going to delete them. This way, if I add edge loops, it's not going to be running into many problems. And it should just make things a little easier to kind of move around. So now I'm going to take these vertices, I might lower them a bit just to line it up with the palm a little bit better. So let's just take these, bring them into place a little bit more. And all I'm doing is just adjusting those vertices. Sometimes I'll have all the different views kind of open at the same time, just so it's a little easier to see certain parts of it, and just make sure I'm getting the exact pieces I want to move. So as you see, I'm just kind of looking at my hand from all the different angles and just adjusting them as I see fit. So like here I might want to round this out more. That looks pretty good. So everything's looking pretty nice. And again, I'm going to be adjusting a good portion of this hand constantly. So if yours doesn't perfectly match up, that's okay. You just kind of get the hang of it and do how you feel is best. So if we look right here in the top of my thumb, it's not perfectly matching up with the photos. So I might even want to move this a little bit, but we'll see. But in the meantime, let's get this area kind of fixed up a bit. So that way I can round things out a bit nicer. That looks good. That looks, go a little more. Kind of moving this into place. Let's see. Can I get that one to move out more? And as you see, as I'm building out this thumb more and more, it's just kind of taking better shape. So it does look like this picture isn't perfectly lined up. What I'll do is I could take Let's see if aligning this photo will make this even easier. Yeah, it's a bit better. While I'm at it, let's see about lining this one up a little bit better. I am just adjusting these photos to the best of my ability. Oops. And that way it just kind of like makes things overall easier for me. Because the better your reference photos are, and the better way they're set up, the easier it's going to be to really just shape out everything. So that looks pretty good right there. These I can kind of move a little bit more. At this point I'm just kind of like nitpicking, which isn't that big of a deal. But it all really depends on how detailed and how specific you really want to get with your hand. So on the next video, we're going to start working on the top portion of the hand and start creating some of the fingers. So I'll see you in that one.